Leaves of December, emerald grass, poetic scribbles, crisp air and oversized jackets. The scene was vibrant, electric, saturated and even muted at the edges. Green was Clara's favorite color, but on this particular night, that vibrant hue felt like a ghost. It engulfed her as she walked, conjuring memories of a girl named Hazel Reed. Clara stumbled briefly at the thoughts flooding her mind. She had buried those memories deep since Hazel had left their shared apartment just before winter's kiss began to chill the world. She left in December, how fitting, Clara thought bitterly. As Clara navigated the familiar streets, she noticed her feet were leading her somewhere without her permission. All she had wanted was to clear her mind during a solitary night walk, but her heart dictated a different path. Before she knew it, she stood before the rickety blue gazebo nestled in the park that had become their sanctuary. She didn't move. She stared longingly at the structure, the memories swirling around her like a forbidden perfume, eagerly awaiting Hazel's bright face to peek out through the wooden slats, her signature smile warm and inviting. But there was no one there. The chill of the evening air curled around her, penetrating her flannel sleeves and igniting a sensation deep within her chest. "Hold my hand," she thought, almost hearing the soft invitation of Hazel's voice as their fingers intertwined, electric and alive. But that warmth was merely an echo. She shivered once more, pulling her jacket tighter around herself. Clara recalled how Hazel's laughter always seemed to ward off the cold, turning even the frostiest of nights into something soft and comforting. But tonight seemed different. There was an emptiness growing inside her, a shadow lurking behind the fondness. Even the flickering street lamps couldn't infuse her with warmth as Clara lost herself in tracing the intricate carvings etched into the gazebo's frame. Finally reclaiming her resolve, she found the courage to step forward, her heartbeat synchronizing with each movement. As she slipped into the cushioned corner, it felt like stepping into a time capsule of their shared moments. The air inside was stale and quiet, yet it clung to remnants of laughter and whispered truths. Clara closed her eyes, holding her breath as memories surged like a tide. In her mind, she was transported to that last night they'd spent together in this very spot. A night that shimmered with joy and uncertainty. It felt like a bittersweet embrace, an amalgamation of love and the weight of unspoken goodbyes. Clara remembered Hazel in all her radiant glory, sitting across from her, hair glowing under the dimming lights above. She had always described Hazel's presence as akin to sunflowers in full bloom. That was the night Clara had fully grasped what it meant to love someone in every essence of the word. It was a night dense with meaning, skin brushed against skin, breath mingling with whispers of desire. "Did you ever feel the same sunshine?" she recalled asking, her heart strangling her with hope. The name bubbled from her lips like magic, and Hazel's face lit up in that way only Clara could conjure. Her laughter echoed in the recesses of Clara's mind. Time felt elastic that night, stretching between moments that seemed both infinite and fleeting. Hazel's eyes sparkled like stars, illuminating Clara's secrets as they shared dreams beneath the vast canvas of the night sky. Everything felt intentional, cautious yet electrifying. Yet, the next morning brought with it the severing of those dreams. Dread settled heavier than a blanket of snow when Clara noticed the quiet absence of Hazel by her side, and the empty space where her love had once flourished. The weight of a note left behind became her albatross. Initially dismissed, it soon morphed into a lifeline, a thread reminding her of a love lost. Clara remembered that last goodbye, the muted love letter that had rested on her bedside table, words etched in regret. She could still see it as she lay beneath the ethereal blanket of stars, swirling golden sunlight slanting through the branches as everything began to fade. Wiping away tears that had caught her off guard, Clara blinked and refocused on the gazebo, her sanctuary. The wooden beams groaned softly in the chill breeze, and she sighed in acceptance of the bittersweet memories flooding her heart, yet weighed down by the absence. "Why, Hazel? Why didn't you stay? Why did you just leave?" Feeling the ache of longing swell within her chest, Clara took a hesitant step back, glancing back at the path that had brought her here. She turned on her heel, shadows of memories trailing behind her, feeling the cool air cloak her like a familiar shawl, and walked away from the gazebo that had seen them both bloom and wither. Each step was heavy yet cathartic, leaving behind not just the space but pieces of her heart stranded there, echoing all that they could have been. With each step away from the gazebo, Clara felt the chill of the night seeping deeper into her bones. Memories haunted her, weaving through her mind like shadows under the moonlight. Although the park was still vibrant with the echoes of laughter and warmth, Clara felt isolated, wrapped in an invisible shroud of nostalgia. The gentle crunch of fallen leaves underfoot mirrored her scattered thoughts. She longed for clarity, for resolution, but the deeper she delved into her memories, the more she found herself adrift in an ocean of what-ifs. What if she had spoken her heart more openly? What if she hadn't held back? As she made her way through the slowly darkening path, Clara felt a wave of determination surge within her. She had to confront her feelings, not only for Hazel but for herself. The wounds of their separation were festering, and she couldn't allow them to define her any longer. Back in her apartment, Clara nourished the flickering embers of hope. She went about gathering supplies, the craft box nestled away in the corner of her closet, filled with forgotten projects and half-finished dreams. The familiar smell of paint lingered in the air as she rummaged through her old sketches, revisiting the vivid artwork she had once created during simpler times alongside Hazel. Settling down at her kitchen table, Clara pulled out her colors, brushes, and an empty canvas. She breathed in deeply, allowing the rich smell of paint to envelop her in inspiration. With each stroke of the brush against the canvas, she poured her heart and soul into the artwork. Vivid greens and pastels collided, swirling into the shape of a sunrise blooming over a field of sunflowers. Each brushstroke became a catharsis, a way to reclaim herself and her emotions. Hours slipped by unnoticed as Clara lost herself in the rhythm of creation, the world outside fading into silence. The once blank canvas transformed as if it were absorbing her pain and longing, morphing into a vibrant representation of resilience and vulnerability. By the end of the night, surrounded by the chaos of torn pages and splattered paint, Clara stepped back to gaze at her work. It was a representation of love, a beautiful, tumultuous love, not just for Hazel but for herself too. In the glow of her newfound purpose, Clara connected with the very essence of her being, who she was and who she wanted to become. The sunflowers once evoked memories of Hazel. Now they represented her journey and growth to mend her broken pieces. And in the embrace of their vibrant beauty, Clara realized that pain could transform into something beautiful if nurtured with care. The next morning, Clara woke up with renewed spirit. The world was blanketed in a soft layer of fluffy white snow, transforming her familiar surroundings into a landscape of shimmering purity. As she dressed, Clara felt an undeniable pull back to the park, an edge of determination prickling her skin. She had something to say. Margaret's Cafe was the heartbeat of the neighborhood, just a few blocks away. It had been a space filled with warmth and laughter, taking on an intangible intimacy whenever she and Hazel had visited. Clara found herself standing before the familiar doors once again, heart racing. Taking a deep breath, Clara opened the door to the cafe, the warmth enveloping her like a long-lost hug. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and pastries mingled in the air, grounding her amidst the turmoil of her nerves. She scanned the cafe, heart leaping as she spotted the faint yet vibrant green jacket. There, nestled in a corner with a cup of steaming tea, sat Hazel. Her hair glowed under the cafe's soft lighting, and Clara felt a rush of audacity coursing through her veins. The echoes of the past faded into the background as Clara walked forward, each step radiating affirmation. "Hazel," Clara began, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. Green eyes lifted and locked onto hers, the recognition dawning slowly. "Can we talk?" Hazel's gaze softened, her lips parting slightly in surprise as she nodded, gesturing to the seat across from her. The air around them was charged with unspoken words and suppressed emotions. Clara settled in, fighting back the urge to flee. "How have you been?" Hazel's voice broke the silence, a crack in the walls that had built up between them. "I've been learning," Clara replied, the answer surprising even herself. "I painted something last night, something that reminded me of you, of us, why we were so vibrant together." Hazel's expression changed, a mixture of curiosity and sorrow flooding her features. "I've missed you." Clara nodded, the admission heavy and sweet. "I wasn't sure how to find you again. I thought I lost you for good." As Hazel's eyes cast downwards, Clara continued, "But I realized that to reclaim what we had, I had to face my own fears and accept the love we shared." "When I left?" Hazel hesitated, her voice trembling with unshed tears. "I didn't know how to stay without hurting you. It felt easier to walk away." Clara shook her head. "We could have faced it together. I felt so lonely after you left. But I painted it out, I confronted it all. Now I want to face it with you." In that moment, the air thickened with unspoken promises, bonds woven together through shared vulnerability. "We can build something again, Hazel." Clara's voice was barely above a whisper. "But it starts with honesty. I want to share everything, the good, the bad, and the beautiful." Bright sunshine poured through the cafe windows, igniting their faces with warmth. Hazel's lips curled into a hesitant smile, a glimmer of hope intermingled with the uncertainty. "I want that too. I want to reclaim what we lost." And with that, amidst the aroma of coffee and baked goods, Clara felt the tentative beginnings of a new chapter. Perhaps they could write a story together again. One that blossomed with forgiveness, love, and the courage to embrace the messiness of life. The journey back to each other had begun, and it felt profoundly worth it. As Clara and Hazel continued to talk, each conversation flowed like an unbroken stream, filling in the gaps that had formed during their time apart. With every shared laugh and tentative smile, Clara felt the icy grip of loneliness begin to thaw. The cafe air sparkled with potential, each word shared like a stepping stone back to the familiarity they had once had. "I've thought about our treehouse," Clara said, a hint of nostalgia lacing her tone. "You remember those nights we spent there, catching fireflies and talking about all our dreams?" A soft smile appeared on Hazel's face, her eyes dancing with recognition. "Edo, you called me sunshine that night, remember?" Her voice twinkled like the stars they had admired, illuminating the darkness that had crept in during their separation. Clara nodded, the warmth of the memory flooding back. "I wanted to capture you, hold on to that light. I never realized how much your absence would dim my world." You were my anchor, Clara, Hazel admitted quietly, her gaze dropping for a moment, as if recalling her own deeper fears. Leaving was never what I wanted, but I thought it was the best way to protect you from me. From what? Clara challenged gently, shifting forward in her seat, her heart racing with concern. What could ever separate us if we shared everything? Hazel's breath hitched, and she finally met Clara's eyes, an unfiltered vulnerability shining through. I was scared that my struggles would drag you down. I felt like I was drowning and I didn't want you to drown with me. Clara felt a mix of compassion and frustration bubble inside her. Hazel, we could have faced it together. I wanted to fight alongside you. I want to share that weight, not bear it alone. The tears welled in Hazel's eyes as she nodded slowly, understanding dawning. I was so afraid of burdening you that I unintentionally created a burden of my own. I thought distancing myself would allow you to thrive. Clara reached out, her fingers brushing against Hazel's, a spark igniting between them. The intimate touch felt electrifying, as if they were reigniting the connection they had thought extinguished. We're stronger together, Hazel. I learned that the hard way. I want to try again, but this time with honesty, Clara said, her voice filled with determination. Let's not hide from each other anymore. Hazel nodded, a tear escaping down her cheek as she wiped it away quickly, trying to gather the courage to fully lay her heart bare. I don't want to hide either. I've changed. I'm still trying to learn how to be happy without feeling guilty. I'm here for that, Clara promised, her heart swelling with hope. We can face it one step at a time. They shared quiet moments, taking deep breaths as the bustle of the cafe melted into the background. Clara squeezed Hazel's hand gently, remembering how often they had sat in this very spot, talking about their dreams, their fears, and everything in between. Do you want to come to the gazebo with me? Clara asked suddenly, heat rising to her cheeks at the suggestion. I want to show you the painting I made. It's a piece of us. Hazel's eyes sparkled with surprise and delight. I'd love that, she replied, an infectious smile breaking through her earlier tension. I've missed that place. Once outside, the cold air embraced them like an old friend, invigorating and stinging against their skin. The park was dressed in a pristine coat of white, a serene blanket covering the grass and pathways where they had once walked. Clara led the way over to the gazebo, her heart racing with anticipation, eager to share her creation. As they entered, the familiar aura wrapped around them, making it feel like stepping back into their own little world. Clara pulled out her painting, unveiling it with a flourish. Hazel gasped as the colors burst into view. Clara, it's beautiful, she exclaimed, stepping closer to examine the intricate details. You captured everything so perfectly. The sunflowers are memories. Clara's cheeks warmed at the compliment, grateful that Hazel could see the heart she poured into the artwork. I wanted it to symbolize growth, the love we had, and the potential for what we can have again. A tear slipped down Hazel's cheek as she traced her finger along the vibrant sunflowers painted against a backdrop of a sunrise. It's an ode to us, isn't it? To our beauty and our struggles. I love it. The emotion of the moment washed over Clara, and she stepped forward, wrapping her arms around Hazel tightly. I want to create 1,000 more moments like this one. I know it won't be easy, but I'm willing to try. Hazel hugged her back, inhaling Clara's familiar scent and letting out a shuddering breath. I want that too. I need to heal. And I can't imagine anyone better to journey with than you. Clara grinned against Hazel's shoulder, her heart swelling with love and hope. Then let's take that journey together. We can take it day by day, creating new memories while honoring the ones we had. They pulled apart, their eyes locking, the air thick with promise and connection. No more hiding, Hazel reiterated, a fierce determination blossoming within her. Full honesty, Clara agreed. As they stood together in the cozy warmth of the gazebo, surrounded by a garden of vibrant sunflowers and touching memories, Clara felt a rush of sunlight pierce through the clouds. It was the dawn of a new beginning, one painted with the colors of understanding, trust, and an infinite love that neither would shy away from again. And with that commitment they stepped forward, hand in hand, into whatever awaited them, unearthing the potential of their shared hearts and the beauty that lay ahead. With each step Clara and Hazel took away from the gazebo, a renewed sense of possibility bloomed around them. The cold winter air only served to heighten their warmth. It felt as if they were wrapped in a cocoon of shared stories, unspoken promises, and the golden threads of hope weaving their souls together once more. As they walked, Clara noticed how the sunlight began to break through the thin layers of clouds, casting warm glimmers of light onto the snowy ground. It was as though the universe was affirming their decision, urging them forward into whatever awaited. "Where do we start?" Hazel asked, her brow furrowed as they reached the edge of the park, her fingers still entwined with Clara's. Clara paused to think, glancing at Hazel with a determined smile. "Let's create a tradition. Every month we can come here and reflect on what we're feeling. No holding back. We'll share our fears, our triumphs, whatever we have to say. It can be our place of honesty." Hazel's eyes widened with a mix of surprise and delight. "I love that idea. A safe space to be ourselves and grow together." With that, they strolled to a nearby tree, its branches heavy with snow. It felt right to make a promise of growth and honesty under its sheltering shade. They made a quick pact, laughing as they mapped out the next few months in their minds. "Do you want to grab some hot cocoa afterward?" Clara suggested, her heart thumping with excitement. "We can celebrate our commitment." "Absolutely," Hazel said, her eyes lighting up. "I can't think of anything better than sweetening this moment." The two made their way toward a cozy cafe that Clara loved, where the chocolatier always crafted rich, indulgent cocoa topped with whipped cream and sprinkles. As they entered, the warmth enveloped them, and the rich aroma of chocolate was intoxicating. While waiting for their order, Clara noticed how the tension from earlier had melted away, replaced by a soothing camaraderie. They settled at a small table by the window, watching the snowflakes twirl down like tiny ballerinas outside while sipping their drinks. "I've missed this," Hazel said, looking around the cafe, her voice soft but filled with yearning. "Being together like this. Simple moments but so important." "Yeah, me too," Claire replied, taking a gulp of her cocoa that warmed her more than just physically. "I realize now how easy it is to lose sight of what matters when you're caught up in your own fears." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, like water over stones. They talked about life, futures, and the dreams each held close. Every now and then, they'd sneak glances at each other, their eyes lingering a little longer than necessary, reigniting the old flame that flickered warmly. As they finished up, an urge bubbled within Clara. "Can we take a picture?" she asked, pulling out her phone. "I want to capture today, the beginning of our new tradition." Hazel smiled, nodding enthusiastically. "Yes, let's do it." They snuggled closely together, Clara wrapping her arm around Hazel's shoulders as they leaned in, the warmth between them sparking even brighter as they snapped a few pictures, giggling and playfully jostling each other. When they finally turned back to the table, the air shifted slightly, filled with an undercurrent of something deeper. "Hey, can I ask you something?" Hazel's tone shifted, a slight nervousness threading through her voice. "Of course," Clara replied, tilting her head in curiosity. "How do you feel about labels?" Hazel began, her voice dropping to a whisper as if the question itself held weighty secrets. Clara considered the question carefully. "Labels can be tricky," she said slowly. "I think it depends on how they define who we are. With you, it feels simple and complex all at once. I want to be with you without feeling trapped by any labels." Hazel nodded, her eyes shining with understanding. "I feel the same way. I think we've spent so long trying to define things when we could just be." "Exactly," Clara said, relief flooding through her. "Let's just focus on what we have right now." Their hands reached across the table, fingers intertwining, grounding each other in that moment. The world outside continued to swirl in white, but inside warmth enveloped them, sealing a pact far greater than any label. With their hearts aligned, they finished their drinks and headed outside into the crisp, snowy evening. Clara paused, glancing back at the cafe, wishing to etch this moment forever in her memory. "You know what?" she said suddenly. "What?" "I feel ready to start dreaming big again. Bigger than just the next month. I want us to be a part of my future, whatever that might look like." Hazel's heart surged at those words, and she felt the thrill of hope wrapping around her like a warm blanket. "I want that too, Clara. I've always wanted that." As the sun began to set, painting the sky with soft pink and gold hues, Clara and Hazel walked side by side, laughter bubbling between them as they stepped back onto the familiar paths of their lives. A journey that had once seemed daunting began to feel exhilarating, and with every step they took together, they knew they were rewriting their love story, not defined by the pain of the past, but enriched by the beautiful complexity of their shared experience. They were ready to embrace whatever came their way, almost fearlessly and with an open heart. As they strolled away from the park, their fingers intertwined, Clara felt the air around them vibrating with promise, the glowing warmth of potential filling her soul. Together they had rediscovered the beauty of love, the strength in vulnerability, and perhaps most importantly, the patience required to grow. This was only the beginning, the dawn of a new chapter. And for both Clara and Hazel, brighter days lay ahead, teeming with hope, love, and endless possibilities.